for our analysis, we have this training and test set. So this is quite general to all machine learning or other models. So in this case, basically, we can have in-sample data and out-sample data. So in some cases, we use cross-validation to estimate the hyperparameters. So for instance, in the in-sample data, we separate into two parts in some cases. One is the training set, and the other set is the cross-validation data set, or the validation data set, as the name suggests. And this is the validation set. And in this case, we train the model with training data. And if there are certain parameters that needs to be optimized, so for many machine learning models, there are certain parameters to be optimized, and we use validation set to optimize such parameters. And then whenever we optimize the model by using this validation set, again, this can be in single partition, as well as, depending on the case, it can be on multiple partitions. We have the R model, and then we test the R model on auto-sample data. And again, if we basically, this is one partition of this data. So for instance, we partition here as a training set. Here is the test set. In another partition, we can select another random part as the test set and another random parts as training and the cross-validation set. So in this case, in a different partition, if you keep these repeated partitions, so for instance, here is the testing set. So assume that we use 5 cross-validation. So in this case, there will be 5 partitions of these data. So assume that this is in sample. These 4 parts are in sample. And the last part is basically out of sample. And in this case, this will be and assume that for one of these in sample is a validation set. This is a cross-validation. And when we repeat this process for different test sets, so first, this is the test set. In the first case, these 4 will be the training set. In the second case, this is the test set. And the remaining 4 will be training set and validation set. In the next step, this becomes the test set, so on and so forth. So if we partition the data sets and use each partition as the test set and the remaining parts as the training set, then in this case, this becomes basically a cross-validation. And there is a question I just noticed. And how does this process of validation and testing differ in real-time training? So in real-time training, so it depends what do you mean by real-time training. So it's the same as the one that we use in the machine learning. So in real-time training, it will be again same. So there won't be much difference, I will say. Okay, so it's basically the cross-validation or the training that we see in the machine learning models and real-time machine learning models.